If you want to improve your English listening and speaking skills, you're in the right place. In this episode, you will hear real-life stories and conversations that will help you understand natural English. By listening to real situations, you will learn how people speak in daily life. This will help you feel more confident when you speak. Before we begin, here are a few questions to think about. Have you ever had a conversation where you didn't understand some words? Do you sometimes feel nervous when speaking English? Have you ever learned something important from a real-life experience? In today's episode, you will hear stories that show how people communicate in different situations. Listen carefully and try to notice how they use words, phrases, and expressions. Let's begin with a personal story. I remember the first time I traveled alone to another country. I was in Paris, and I needed to ask for directions to my hotel. I walked up to a man at the train station and asked, "Excuse me, can you help me find this place?" He looked at the address and started giving me directions, but he spoke very fast. I could understand some words, but I was struggling to keep up. I felt nervous, but I didn't give up. I used what I knew. I repeated some key words. Left, right, metro station. He smiled and slowed down. He even pointed in the right direction. I finally understood, and I felt so happy. This experience taught me that even if you don't understand everything, you can still communicate by focusing on key words, using body language, and staying calm. Now think about a time when you had to ask for help in English. How did you feel? Did you understand everything, or did you use gestures and simple words to communicate? Let's move on to another real-life story. Let me tell you another story from my own experience. This one happened during a work trip. I was attending a business conference in New York City, and it was my first time presenting a project in front of so many people. I had prepared for weeks, practiced my speech, and made sure I knew all the important points. But when I stood up in front of the audience, I felt nervous. My hands were shaking, and my mind went blank for a second. Have you ever felt like that when you had to speak in English? Maybe you were in a meeting or talking to someone for the first time. It's completely normal to feel nervous, and it happens to everyone. In the moment, I remembered something important. Speaking clearly and slowly is key. I took a deep breath, smiled, and started to talk. At first, I spoke too quickly, trying to get through everything I had planned. But I noticed that people were starting to look confused. I took another deep breath, slowed down, and repeated some key points. That made a big difference. People started to listen more closely, and they even asked questions afterward. This experience showed me how important it is to not just focus on what you're saying, but also on how you're saying it. When you're speaking in English, it's not just about knowing all the words. It's about speaking with confidence and using the right pace. Even if you don't use big words, speaking slowly and clearly will help others understand you better. And it will help you feel more confident. Now let's think about another situation. Have you ever had to make a phone call in English? Maybe you called a hotel to ask about a reservation or called a friend to make plans. A phone call can be even harder than face-to-face conversations because you can't rely on body language or facial expressions. But it's still possible to communicate effectively with just your words. I remember the first time I called a hotel in a foreign country. I needed to confirm my reservation, but the receptionist spoke quickly, and I wasn't sure about a few words. At first, I started to panic because I wasn't understanding everything, but then I took a deep breath and said, "Sorry, could you repeat that more slowly?" The receptionist was very understanding and repeated the information at a slower pace. I made sure to write down important details like the check-in time and the price of my stay. After the call, I realized that asking for clarification is perfectly fine, and it's a good way to make sure you understand correctly. It doesn't matter if you're nervous, as long as you keep asking questions when you need help. These types of everyday situations are exactly what you'll hear about here in the English Pod community. By listening to stories like these, you'll be able to practice your listening and speaking skills. The more you listen to real-life conversations, the easier it will become to speak confidently in similar situations. Speaking of confidence, let me share one more story. This one is about a time when I met some new friends at a dinner party. Everyone was speaking English, and it was a little overwhelming because I wasn't sure how to join the conversation. Have you ever felt like you wanted to speak but didn't know what to say? That's completely normal too. I decided to just listen for a while and learn how people were talking about different topics. After a while, I felt comfortable enough to share something small. I told a funny story about a trip I had taken to the mountains. I didn't speak perfectly, but everyone laughed and joined in. They appreciated my story, and I felt like I had finally found my place in the conversation. This experience taught me that you don't have to be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. The important thing is to keep trying and to stay relaxed. People will listen to you and appreciate your effort, even if you make a... So here's something for you to think about. When you're in an English conversation, whether it's with friends, coworkers, or strangers, focus on being clear and confident. Don't be afraid to ask for clarification or to slow down if you need to, and remember, it's okay to make mistakes. They're part of the learning process. The more you practice listening and speaking in these real-life situations, the more natural it will become for you. At the English Pod community, we upload new content every day to help you practice these skills. You'll hear different stories and examples that teach you how to communicate effectively in English. By listening to these real-life situations, you'll improve your ability to understand and speak English more fluently. Think about how these lessons can help you the next time you're in a similar situation. Whether you're asking for directions in a new city or speaking at a work meeting, you'll have the confidence and skills to understand and respond clearly. You'll be able to take everything you've learned and use it in your own conversations. And remember, with each story you hear and each lesson you learn, you're one step closer to becoming even better at English. So, let's keep going. The more you listen, the better you'll get at both listening and speaking. Just like the examples I shared with you today, these real-life stories are here to help you practice and improve every day. Keep listening, and soon you'll feel more confident in your English skills. Now that you've heard some stories and tips, take a moment to think about how you can apply these lessons in your own life. Maybe you have your own story to share, or you can think of a time when you used English in a similar situation. Whatever it is, don't be afraid to keep practicing. The more you use English in real situations, the easier and more natural it will become. Let's dive even deeper into how everyday situations can help you improve your listening and speaking skills. This time, I'm going to share some more personal stories that will show you how you can use these skills in different situations. Let's start with a situation many of you might have experienced. Talking to a cashier at a store. Maybe you've gone shopping for clothes, groceries, or even just picking up a coffee at a cafe. Sometimes it can feel a little awkward because you're trying to understand what the cashier is saying, and they might be speaking quickly or asking you questions you weren't prepared for. Does that sound familiar? I remember one time I was at a coffee shop and I ordered my usual, a latte with extra foam. I was in a hurry, so I didn't think much of it when the barista asked me, "Do you want that to go or for here?" I quickly said to go, but then she said something else that I didn't quite catch. I wasn't sure if she was asking about the size or something else, so I hesitated for a moment. In that moment, I remembered something that really helped me. When you don't understand something, it's okay to ask the person to repeat or explain it more slowly. I politely asked, "Sorry, could you say that again?" And she did. She said, "Would you like a small, medium, or large?" At that moment, I felt so much better because I wasn't afraid to ask for clarification. It also made me realize that it's okay to admit when you don't understand something. People are usually willing to help. And by doing this, you will not only improve your English, but you'll also feel more comfortable in real conversations. This experience taught me that speaking English is not just about knowing the right words, but also about listening carefully and being confident enough to ask questions. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to have conversations in English, no matter where you are. Remember, it's perfectly normal to ask for clarification. In fact, it shows that you care about understanding the conversation fully, and that's an important skill. Now let's think about another situation where listening and speaking skills come into play. Have you ever tried to explain something to a friend or family member in English? Maybe you were explaining how to do something or telling them about a book or movie you enjoyed. Well, let me tell you about a time when I was explaining how to cook a dish I love. It was my friend Lisa's birthday, and I decided to make her a special dinner. I had a recipe that I had cooked many times before, but this time I was explaining it to her in English. I knew the recipe well, but when I started talking about the ingredients, I realized that I couldn't remember the exact English names for everything. I was thinking in my native language, and I needed to switch quickly to English. At first, I tried to explain by using simple words. I said, "It's a vegetable that looks like a small green ball." But Lisa didn't understand right away. So I tried again. "It's called Brussels sprouts, and you cook them by boiling or roasting them." I was relieved when she understood me. This moment made me realize something very important. If you don't know the exact word, don't be afraid to explain it in another way. You can always describe something using different words, gestures, or examples. The key is to keep the conversation going, even if you don't know the perfect word for something. This story also teaches us that the more we practice speaking in real situations, the easier it becomes to express ourselves in English. Whether you're explaining something to a friend or trying to describe an experience, the more you practice, the more confident you'll become. And remember, people will appreciate that you're making an effort even if you don't use the exact right word. Let's take a moment to think about another situation where listening is super important. When you're watching a movie or listening to a podcast. Have you ever watched something in English and felt like you missed a lot of the conversation? Maybe the actors were speaking too quickly or using slang that you didn't understand. I've been there too. One time, I was watching a popular TV show, and I realized that I couldn't understand half of what the characters were saying. They were speaking quickly, and there were so many slang words I didn't recognize. At first, I felt frustrated, but then I decided to try a new strategy. Instead of worrying about understanding every word, I focused on the overall meaning. I watched the show with subtitles, and I started to notice patterns in the way the characters spoke. Even though I didn't know every word, I could still understand the general idea of what was happening. This experience taught me something really valuable. It's okay if you don't understand every word, especially when you're listening to fast speech or slang. The important thing is to listen for key ideas and context. Over time, your brain will get better at picking up the main points, even if you don't catch every word. And with practice, you'll be able to understand faster and more naturally. Let's go even further and think about a situation that can be a little tricky: giving feedback in English. Have you ever had to give feedback at work or in school? Maybe you had to tell someone what you liked or didn't like about a project, a presentation, or even a meal. I once had to give feedback on a colleague's presentation. It was a difficult situation because I didn't want to hurt their feelings, but I also wanted to be honest. I started by saying something positive. "You did a great job explaining the main points." Then I gently added, "One thing you could improve is speaking more slowly so the audience can follow along better." I made sure to say it in a way that was constructive, and I asked if they wanted any help with their next presentation. This experience helped me realize that giving feedback is not just about using the right words. It's also about the tone and how you say it. Being polite and respectful makes a huge difference, especially when you're giving feedback in English. The way you listen and the way you speak both matter in these situations. Giving feedback in English is an important skill, especially at work or in a learning environment. So, as you listen to this episode, think about how you can apply these listening and speaking strategies in your own life. Every situation is an opportunity to improve your English. Whether you're giving feedback, explaining something, or simply having a casual conversation, the more you practice, the better you'll become. And the more real-life experiences you have, the easier it will be to improve your listening and speaking skills. Let's go even deeper into situations that can help you improve. Think about all the different times in your day when you use English, or when you could use English if you had the chance. Maybe you're talking to a friend, ordering food, asking for directions, or even explaining something at work or school. Every single one of these moments is a great chance to practice. Now let me share another personal story with you. This one is about a time when I had to give directions to a tourist. This was a great moment for me because I had to think quickly and communicate clearly. One day I was walking through the city when a woman stopped me and asked, "Excuse me, can you tell me how to get to the train station?" At first, I was surprised because I wasn't expecting to give directions. But then, I quickly gathered my thoughts and started explaining. I pointed to the street and said, "Yes! Walk straight down this road for about 5 minutes, then turn left at the traffic light. You'll see the train station on your right." She smiled and said, "Thank you so much." But then, she asked another question. "Is there a shortcut?" I had to think fast. I knew there was a shortcut through a small park, but I wasn't sure how to explain it in simple English. Instead of getting nervous, I took my time and used the words I knew. I said, "Yes, you can walk through the park over there. It's faster than the main road." I pointed again so she could see where I meant. This situation taught me something very important. When speaking English, it's okay to keep your sentences simple. You don't need to use big words or complicated grammar. What matters is that the other person understands you. Think about this in your own life. Have you ever needed to explain something quickly in English? Maybe you needed to tell someone where to find a shop or how to use a machine. These small moments are great practice because they teach you how to speak clearly and naturally. Now let's move to another common situation: ordering food at a restaurant. Have you ever felt nervous while ordering in English? Maybe the waiter spoke too fast or you weren't sure what to say. I've been there too. I remember the first time I went to a restaurant in an English-speaking country. I looked at the menu and saw so many options, but I wasn't sure how to say my order correctly. When the waiter came to my table, I panicked a little. I wanted to order a grilled chicken sandwich with fries, but I wasn't sure if I should say fries or chips, because I knew different countries use different words. Instead of hesitating, I smiled and said, "Can I have the grilled chicken sandwich with fries, please?" The waiter understood me right away and asked, "Would you like a drink with that?" For a second, I wasn't sure what to say. I didn't want a soda, but I also didn't just want water. So I took a deep breath and said, "Do you have fresh juice?" The waiter smiled and said, "Yes, we have orange juice, apple juice, and mango juice." I was so relieved. This small conversation helped me realize that ordering food in English is easier when you stay calm, listen carefully, and use simple words. Even if you make small mistakes, people will understand you. If you ever feel nervous about ordering in English, try this trick. Before you go to a restaurant, practice your order in your head. Think about what you want to eat and how to ask for it. You can even practice with a friend or in front of a mirror. The more you practice, the more confident you'll feel. Now, let's talk about another situation that can really help improve your English, making small talk with strangers. This can be a little scary at first, but it's one of the best ways to practice speaking in real life. One time, I was waiting at a bus stop, and there was an older man standing next to me. He looked at me and smiled, then said, "Nice weather today, isn't it?" At first, I wasn't sure how to respond. I could have just said yes, but I wanted to keep the conversation going. So I smiled back and said, "Yes, it's much warmer than yesterday. Do you like this kind of weather?" He nodded and said, "Oh yes, I love sunny days. Cold weather makes my knees hurt." We laughed, and then he asked me where I was from. This led to a great conversation about different countries and cultures. By the time the bus arrived, I realized that I had just practiced English in a natural way without even thinking about it. This story shows that small talk doesn't have to be complicated. A simple comment about the weather, the bus, or even the food at a cafe can start a conversation. If you're not sure what to say, just ask a simple question. "How's your day going?" Or, "Do you come here often?" These small interactions will help you get more comfortable speaking in English. I'm so glad to see you sticking with me through this. You're doing amazing work by practicing your English every day. Remember, every time you listen to English, you're giving yourself the chance to grow and improve. We're diving into even more real-life situations today that will help you boost both your listening and speaking skills. Let's start with a moment that happens in almost every day for many people: a phone call. Maybe it's with a friend, a family member, or even a business call. Phone calls can be tricky, right? You can't see the person's face and sometimes the connection isn't clear. I remember a time when I had to call a service center for help with my internet connection. The person on the other end was speaking very quickly, and I wasn't sure if I understood everything she said. But instead of getting frustrated, I asked her to repeat things in a polite way. I said, "Sorry, could you say that again? I didn't quite catch that." She smiled on the other side and repeated herself a little slower. Then I felt more confident and asked questions to make sure I understood correctly. Finally, after a few minutes, the problem was solved, and I had all the information I needed. This experience helped me realize something important about phone calls in English. It's okay to ask for clarification. If you don't understand something, just ask the person to repeat or explain it again. They'll be happy to help you. And over time, as you listen to more phone conversations, you'll get used to the pace and the way people speak. Another situation where you might need to practice English is when you're giving a presentation or talking to a group. The first time I had to give a presentation in English, I was so nervous. I had prepared for weeks, but when I stood in front of the group, my heart was racing. I knew my words, but the nerves made my mind go blank. I started by introducing myself with a simple sentence. "Hi, my name is Natasha, and today I'll be talking about the importance of learning English." I took a deep breath and continued. I had a few notes in front of me, but I tried to keep my words natural. At first, I was talking too fast, trying to get through it quickly. But then I noticed that the listeners were leaning in, paying attention, and I felt more confident. So, I slowed down and added more details. For example, I explained why English is useful in many parts of life, at work, when traveling, or even in online communities. By the end of the presentation, I was proud of myself. I had made mistakes, yes, but I also connected with my audience. I realized that it wasn't about being perfect. It was about being clear and confident. The more you practice speaking in front of others, the better you'll get at it. And you'll feel more comfortable in the process. Speaking in front of a group isn't easy for everyone, but it's a great opportunity to build your English skills. The more you expose yourself to these situations, the more confident you'll become. If you get nervous, remember, even native speakers feel nervous sometimes. The goal is to communicate, not to be perfect. And every time you speak, you get a little bit better. Let's take another example. Think about when you're at the doctor's office or a health clinic. Maybe you need to explain how you're feeling or describe your symptoms. This can be a bit tricky, especially if you don't know all the medical words in English. But again, it's all about keeping it simple. I remember when I had to visit the doctor while traveling abroad. I had a cold, but I didn't know the right words to describe it. I wasn't sure if I should say runny nose or stuffed nose, and I felt a bit nervous. But instead of worrying, I just started talking about how I felt. When the doctor asked me what was wrong, I said, "I have a cold, and my nose is a bit stuffed." Then she asked, "Do you have a sore throat or a cough?" I replied, "Yes, my throat feels sore, and I've been coughing a little." Even though I wasn't using any complicated vocabulary, the doctor understood me perfectly, and she gave me the advice I needed. This taught me that when you're in a medical situation, the goal is to explain how you're feeling in a way that's easy to understand. Don't worry if you don't know all the medical terms. It's much more important to communicate clearly so that the doctor can help you. And if you don't understand something, just ask them to explain in simpler terms. When we're learning English, we often focus on the big words and the fancy grammar. But what really matters in real-life situations is being able to express yourself clearly. Whether it's a doctor's visit, a meeting at work, or a simple chat with a friend, the key is communication. Now, let's think about how we interact when we go shopping. Shopping is another everyday situation where we use English. When I first moved to an English-speaking country, I found shopping a little tricky. There were so many new things to understand: what size clothes to buy, how to ask for a discount, or how to return something if it didn't fit. One time, I went to a clothing store and wanted to try on a pair of jeans. I walked up to the counter and asked the sales associate, "Hi, can I try these jeans on in a size medium?" She smiled and said, "Sure, the fitting rooms are right over there." After trying them on, I decided they weren't quite right. So I went back to the counter and asked, "Could I return these jeans? They're not the right size for me." The associate was so kind and helped me with the return. This experience showed me that even in shopping situations, it's important to be polite and clear. If you're unsure about something, just ask. People in stores are used to helping customers, and they'll make sure you get what you need. The more you practice speaking in these everyday situations, the easier it will become. And remember, English doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be clear. Even if you make small mistakes, don't let it stop you from speaking. The more you practice, the better you'll get, and soon it will feel completely natural. The goal is to feel comfortable in all types of situations, whether it's at a doctor's office, during a presentation, or while chatting with a friend. The more you practice, the more confident you'll feel in your English abilities. Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep pushing yourself. You're doing great. Imagine you are traveling to a new city where people mostly speak English. Whether you're at the airport, checking into a hotel, or ordering food at a restaurant, English is essential in all these situations. Let's go step by step and look at different scenarios that can help you practice. Let's start with the airport. Traveling can already be stressful, and it becomes even more challenging when you have to communicate in a second language. I remember the first time I had to take a flight alone to an English-speaking country. I had prepared all my travel documents, checked my flight details, and made sure I arrived early. But when I got to the airport, I realized I had to go through multiple steps where I needed to speak English. First, I had to check in my luggage. I walked up to the airline counter, and the staff member greeted me with a smile and said, "Good morning. Where are you flying today?" At first, I was a little nervous, but I took a deep breath and responded clearly, "I am flying to London today." She nodded and asked, "Do you have any bags to check in?" I replied, "Yes, I have one suitcase." She then asked, "Did you pack your bags yourself?" I quickly responded, "Yes, I packed them myself." The whole process continued smoothly, and I realized something important. Airline staff members often use the same set of questions. If you learn common phrases for travel, it becomes much easier to respond confidently. After checking in my luggage, I had to go through airport security. This can be stressful if you don't know what to expect. The security officer asked me to place my bags on the conveyor belt and walk through a scanner. Then she asked, "Do you have any liquids in your bag?" I paused for a moment and realized I had a small bottle of water. I said, "Yes, I have a bottle of water in my backpack." She explained, "You will need to throw that away before going through security." I quickly removed the bottle and said, "Okay, I understand. Thank you." This experience taught me how important it is to listen carefully in such situations. Airport staff often speak quickly, so it's useful to practice listening to travel-related conversations in English. If you don't understand something, it's completely okay to ask them to repeat it. A simple phrase like, "Could you repeat that, please?" can help a lot. Now, let's move on to another common travel situation, checking into a hotel. After a long flight, you finally arrive at your destination, and the first thing you need to do is check in. This is another moment when speaking and listening in English is necessary. I remember staying in a hotel for the first time while traveling alone. When I arrived at the reception desk, the hotel staff greeted me with, "Welcome. Do you have a reservation?" I smiled and said, "Yes. My name is Natasha, and I have a reservation for 2 nights." The receptionist looked up my booking and said, "I see your reservation here. May I see your passport, please?" I handed over my passport and she continued, "Would you like a room on a higher floor or a lower floor?" I thought for a moment and then replied, "A higher floor, please, if possible." She nodded and said, "Certainly. Your room is on the 10th floor. Here is your key card. The elevators are to your left. Enjoy your stay." This interaction was simple, but it showed me how useful it is to know basic phrases for checking into a hotel. If you ever feel unsure about something, you can always ask for clarification. Phrases like, "Could you repeat that?" or "Can you please explain?" are very helpful. Now let's move on to something that happens to all of us, ordering food at a restaurant. Eating out is one of the best ways to experience new places, but it also requires some speaking and listening skills. In English, I remember visiting a small cafe in New York City. It was a busy morning and the line was long. When I finally reached the counter, the cashier smiled and asked, "Good morning. What would you like to order?" I was excited but also a little nervous. I looked at the menu and said, "I would like a cappuccino and a croissant, please." The cashier responded, "Would you like any sugar with your cappuccino?" I quickly said, "No, thank you, just as it is." Then she asked, "For here or to go?" At first, I didn't understand the question. I paused for a second, then realized she was asking if I wanted to sit down and eat or take my order to go. I smiled and said, "To go, please." She gave me my total price, and I paid. A few minutes later, she called out my order, and I picked it up. This experience showed me how small conversations in restaurants follow a pattern. If you listen carefully, you can recognize common phrases and be ready to respond. Even if you don't understand something right away, you can always ask the cashier to repeat or explain. Now, let's talk about something even more important, asking for directions. Imagine you are in a new city and you are lost. How do you ask someone for help in English? I once got lost while walking through a new neighborhood. My phone battery had died, and I couldn't use Google Maps. I saw a kind-looking older woman on the sidewalk, and I decided to ask for help. I walked up to her and said, "Excuse me, could you help me? I am looking for the train station." She smiled and said, "Oh, the train station is about 3 blocks that way. Walk straight, then turn left at the traffic light. You will see it on your right." I repeated, "Walk straight, then turn left at the traffic light, and it's on my right." "Thank you so much." She nodded and said, "You're welcome. Have a great day." That moment made me realize that asking for directions is easy when you know the right words. If you ever need help, just start with, "Excuse me, could you help me?" Then, listen carefully to the directions. If you're unsure, you can always repeat the instructions back to confirm. Everyday conversations like these are great opportunities to improve your English. Whether you're traveling, shopping, eating out, or asking for directions, every real-life situation is a chance to listen, speak, and grow more confident in English. Let's talk about something everyone needs to do: shopping. Whether you're in a small local store or a big shopping mall, you'll often find yourself in a situation where you need to use English to ask for things, get information, or even make a purchase. I remember when I went shopping in a large department store in London. I was looking for a new jacket, and I wasn't sure where the section was. I decided to ask a store employee for help. I approached a friendly employee and said, "Excuse me, could you help me? I'm looking for the jacket section." She smiled and replied, "Sure. It's on the second floor, near the escalator. Just take the elevator up." I thanked her and went on my way. When I reached the second floor, I needed to find the right size. There was another employee nearby, so I approached him and said, "Hi, I'm looking for a medium-sized jacket. Do you have that size?" He looked at the rack and replied, "Yes, we have a few medium jackets right here. Would you like to try one on?" I smiled and said, "Yes, I'd like to try one, please." After trying the jacket, I decided to buy it. When I got to the checkout counter, the cashier greeted me, "Hi, how are you today?" I answered, "I'm good, thank you. Just buying this jacket." She asked, "Would you like to pay by card or cash?" I said, "I'll pay by card, please." These simple interactions might seem small, but they show how essential it is to know basic phrases for shopping. Whether you're asking about product details, looking for specific sizes, or just paying for your items, English is very important. Shopping also gives you a chance to practice more vocabulary, like clothing items, sizes, colors, and materials. The more you practice, the more confident you will feel in any shopping situation. Now let's talk about something else we all do: going to a doctor's office. Whether it's for a checkup or because you're feeling unwell, knowing how to talk to a doctor in English is a very useful skill. I had an experience once where I had to go to a clinic during a trip to the US because I wasn't feeling well. When I walked into the doctor's office, the receptionist greeted me, "Hello, how can I help you today?" I told her, "I'm feeling a bit sick and I'd like to see a doctor." She asked, "What symptoms are you experiencing?" I thought for a moment and said, "I have a sore throat, a headache, and I'm feeling a bit tired." She noted it down and said, "Okay, please have a seat, and the doctor will be with you shortly." When the doctor came in, she asked, "Hi, I'm Dr. Smith. What seems to be the problem today?" I explained, "I've had a sore throat and headache for a couple of days now." She nodded and asked, "Have you taken any medication for it?" I replied, "No, I haven't taken anything yet." She then said, "I'll check your temperature and listen to your chest. Please sit back and relax." This experience was a good reminder of how important it is to understand medical English, especially when you're in a situation where you need to explain your symptoms clearly. It's also helpful to know phrases like, "I'm feeling sick," "I have a headache," and "Can you check my temperature?" so that you can effectively communicate with health. Let's now move on to a situation that many of us face: going to a bank. Whether you're depositing money, opening an account, or asking about exchange rates, speaking English at the bank is something we all need to do at some point. I had an experience where I went to the bank to open a savings account while I was living abroad. I walked up to the desk and the bank teller said, "Hello, how can I assist you today?" I replied, "I would like to open a savings account, please." She smiled and asked, "Do you have your ID with you?" I handed over my passport, and she continued, "Do you know which type of account you would like to open? We have basic savings and high-interest savings accounts. I said, I think I would like to open a basic savings account. She asked me a few more questions like my address, phone number, and email address. After all the paperwork was done, she said, you'll receive your bank card and account details by mail in a few days. This experience was another important reminder of how essential it is to know key vocabulary when you're doing financial transactions. Words like savings account, deposit, and bank card are all useful in these situations. When you're in a foreign country, it's especially important to know how to ask for what you need, whether it's about currency exchange, account types, or fees. Speaking of money, let's talk about one of the most common and necessary situations: ordering. At a restaurant or cafe, whether you're grabbing a coffee or sitting down for a full meal, knowing how to communicate with waitstaff in English is important for making sure you get what you want. I remember going to a coffee shop in Toronto. The menu was in English, but I didn't quite know what some of the coffee options were. I looked at the barista and said, "Hi, can you tell me what the difference is between a latte and a cappuccino?" She smiled and said, "A cappuccino has more foam, and a latte has more milk. Would you like to try a cappuccino?" I thought for a second and said, "I'll try a cappuccino, please." Then she asked, "Would you like it to stay here or take it to go?" I replied, "I'll take it to go." She handed me my coffee and said, "Enjoy. Have a great day." In this situation, I had to ask questions to understand the menu better. Asking for clarification in English, like, "What's the difference between this and that?" or "Could you recommend something?" can be very helpful when you're not sure about what's being offered. Now imagine you're meeting someone for the first time in a social setting, like a party or a networking event. This situation involves both speaking and listening. You may be talking to someone who is sharing their story, and you need to understand them well. At a recent networking event, I met a woman named Emma who was telling me about her work in marketing. She started by saying, "I've been in the marketing field for over 5 years, and I love working with creative teams. It's so exciting to see a campaign go from an idea to reality." I listened carefully and then responded, "That sounds amazing. What's your favorite part of working with creative teams?" She replied, "I love brainstorming new ideas. There's always a new challenge, and it keeps me motivated." This conversation was a great opportunity to practice both listening and speaking. The more you practice talking about your experiences and listening to others, the better your communication skills will become. These real-life situations show how important it is to improve your English listening and speaking skills. Whether you're ordering food, traveling, going to the doctor, or just chatting with a new acquaintance, each conversation helps you improve your ability to understand and respond in English. Practice is key, and the more you put yourself in situations where you need to use English, the more natural it will become. Let's imagine you are traveling to an English-speaking country for the first time. You've just arrived at the airport, and now you need to go through immigration and customs. This can be a little stressful, but if you know the right words and phrases, it becomes much easier. When I traveled to Canada for the first time, I had to go through immigration at the airport. As I approached the immigration officer, I felt a little nervous, but I reminded myself to stay calm and listen carefully. The officer looked at my passport and asked, "What is the purpose of your visit?" I replied, "I'm here for a vacation." Then, he asked, "How long will you be staying in Canada?" I answered, "I'll be here for 2 weeks." Next, he wanted to know, "Where will you be staying?" I had my hotel reservation ready, so I said, "I'll be staying at the Grand Maple Hotel in downtown Toronto." He nodded and asked one last question. "Do you have anything to declare?" I knew this question meant he was asking if I was carrying any restricted items, so I said, "No, I don't have anything to declare." Finally, he stamped my passport and said, "Welcome to Canada. Enjoy your trip." This whole process took just a few minutes, but I realized how important it was to understand common questions at immigration. If you travel abroad, you'll likely hear questions like, "What is the purpose of your visit?" This means, why are you traveling? Are you a tourist, a student, or visiting family? How long will you be staying? They want to know the duration of your trip. Where will you be staying? They want to know your accommodation details. Do you have anything to declare? They are asking if you are carrying anything restricted, like alcohol, large amounts of money, or food. By practicing answers to these questions, you can feel more confident when traveling. Let's talk about a situation that many people find tricky: making small talk at a social event. It could be a party, a networking event, or just meeting new people at a friend's house. Small talk can feel awkward, but once you know what to say, it gets a lot easier. A few months ago, I attended a networking event in London. I didn't know anyone there, and I felt a bit nervous. But I reminded myself that small talk is all about starting a conversation and keeping it light and easy. When I walked in, I saw a woman standing by the drinks table, so I decided to approach her and start a conversation. I smiled and said, "Hi, how are you?" She smiled back and said, "I'm good, thank you. How about you?" Then I asked, "So what brings you to this event?" She replied, "I'm here to meet new people and talk about some exciting projects. How about you?" I answered, "I'm here to expand my network and see if I can collaborate with others." From there, the conversation flowed. We talked about our work, the city, and even the food at the event. It wasn't a deep conversation, but it was enough to get to know each other and make a connection. When you're making small talk, it's good to ask open-ended questions, like, how do you know the host? What do you do for work? Have you been to this place before? What's your favorite thing to do in this city? And, of course, always be ready to share a little about yourself, too. Small talk is not just about asking questions. It's also about being friendly and open. If you practice these simple questions and responses, you'll feel more comfortable talking to anyone in English, even in social settings. Let's now discuss something that a lot of people have to do but might not always feel confident about: asking for help in a store. Whether you're looking for something specific or need assistance with finding a product, it's a situation that happens all the time. One time I was in a grocery store in Australia, and I needed to find a specific type of cheese. I wasn't sure which aisle it was in, so I decided to ask one of the staff members for help. I walked up to a man working in the dairy section and said, "Excuse me, could you tell me where I can find the cheddar cheese?" He smiled and said, "Sure, it's on the next aisle, the third shelf from the top." I thanked him and walked over to the aisle he pointed to. However, when I got there, I couldn't find the cheese. So I went back to ask him again. I said, "Sorry, I couldn't find the cheddar cheese." Next, let's talk about another common situation: booking a flight. This can be stressful if you don't know the right terms, but once you get the hang of it, it's easy to handle. I remember booking my flight to Paris, and it was a bit overwhelming because there were so many options and details. When I called the airline, the customer service representative asked me, "How may I assist you today?" I replied, "I'd like to book a one-way flight to Paris, please." She asked, "What date would you like to depart?" I said, "I want to leave on June 5th. Then she confirmed, "Great. I see that we have a flight departing at 10:30 a.m. Does that work for you?" I said, "Yes, that sounds perfect." She continued, "And would you prefer an economy or business class seat?" I chose economy class, and she asked, "Do you want to add any extra luggage or select your seat now?" I added an extra luggage option and confirmed the seat preference. At the end of the conversation, she said, "Your booking is confirmed. You'll receive an email with all the details." Now let's talk about a situation that can happen anywhere. Ordering food at a restaurant. It's something we all do, but the way we communicate at a restaurant can sometimes feel a bit formal or confusing, especially if you're not used to certain phrases or terms. Let me share a personal experience that happened to me not long ago when I was traveling in Spain. I went to a little restaurant in Barcelona, and it was my first time there. I wasn't sure what to expect, so when I walked in, I was a bit nervous. The waiter greeted me in Spanish, but I smiled and said, "Excuse me, do you speak English?" He smiled back and said, "Of course," I told him. "I'm not sure what to order. Can you recommend something?" He replied, "Sure. We have a great paella here. Would you like to try it?" I had heard of paella, but I wasn't sure if I would like it. So I asked, "What's in the paella?" He explained, "It's a rice dish with seafood, chicken, and vegetables. It's very popular here." After hearing that, I decided to try it. I said, "That sounds great. I'll have the paella, please." The waiter then asked, "Would you like something to drink with your meal?" I said, "Yes. I'll have a glass of white wine, please." Throughout the meal, the waiter checked on me several times to make sure I was okay. He said, "How's the paella? Is everything all right?" And I answered, "It's delicious. Thank you." At the end of the meal, I paid the bill and the waiter said, "Thank you. Have a great evening." This experience taught me the importance of asking questions when you're not sure about something. You can use simple questions like, "Can you recommend something? What's in this dish? Is there a vegetarian option? How spicy is this? Can I get the check, please?" These are all great phrases to use when you're ordering food at a restaurant, whether you're in an English-speaking country or abroad. Let's move on to another situation that can be a bit tricky, taking public transportation. Whether you're using a bus, a subway, or a taxi, knowing how to ask for directions or tickets is essential. I remember the first time I traveled to New York City, and I needed to take the subway. It was a bit overwhelming because the system was so big, and I wasn't sure where to go. When I first arrived at the subway station, I saw a staff member standing by the information booth. I walked up to him and said, "Excuse me, can you help?" "Me? I need to get to Times Square." He smiled and said, "Sure, you can take the 1 train, which will take you directly to Times Square." I asked, "How do I get a ticket for the subway?" He pointed to the ticket machines and said, "You can buy a single ticket from the machine, or you can get a day pass if you're planning to travel more today." I bought a single ticket and then asked, "Which platform should I go to for the 1 ties?" "Train?" He replied, "Go down to platform 3, and the train will be arriving shortly." After that, I found the platform, and within a few minutes, the train arrived. As I got on, I felt more confident. I knew I had asked the right questions, and I was able to get to my destination without any issues. Another situation many people find themselves in is talking about their job or career at a business meeting or interview. Let me tell you about an experience I had in a job interview a while back. I had applied for a marketing position at a company in New York, and I was invited to an interview. I was nervous, of course, because it was my first interview in the city. But once the conversation started, it felt much more natural than I had expected. The interviewer started by asking, "Tell me about yourself." I replied, "I have a background in marketing and communications. I've worked with several brands on advertising campaigns, and I enjoy working with creative teams." She nodded and said, "That sounds interesting. What do you think are the most important skills for someone in marketing?" I said, "In marketing, it's essential to be creative, but also analytical. You need to understand customer needs and be able to create strategies that resonate with them." She then asked, "Can you give an example of a successful campaign you worked on?" I told her about a campaign I led at my previous job, where we launched a product in a new market. I explained how we targeted the right audience, created engaging ads, and used social media to drive traffic. At the end of the interview, she asked, "Do you have any questions for us?" I said, Yes, I'd love to know more about your team and how you measure success in your marketing campaigns. I felt proud of how well the interview went. I had used clear and confident language, and I had asked thoughtful questions, which helped me make a great impression. Let's discuss another real-life scenario that can be stressful: handling an emergency. This could happen anytime, whether it's an injury, a car breakdown, or any other urgent situation. A few years ago, I had to deal with a small accident while I was on a road trip. I was driving through the countryside when my car suddenly broke down. I had no idea what happened, and I had to call for roadside assistance. When I called the service, the operator answered and asked, "How can I help you?" I explained, "My car broke down on the side of the road, and I need help." She asked, "Are you in a safe location?" I replied, "Yes, I'm on a quiet road, but it's getting dark, and I need help soon." She said, "We'll send someone to you in about 30 minutes. Can you give me the exact location?" I gave her my location, and she confirmed, "We have all the details. Help is on the way." Within 30 minutes, a mechanic arrived and was able to fix the issue. He asked me some questions about the car, and we discussed the problem. Now, let's talk about meeting new people, especially in a social setting like a networking event. Imagine you're attending a business event at the Toronto Convention Center. You don't know anyone, and you're a little nervous about striking up a conversation. You're standing near the drinks table when someone approaches you and says, "Hi, I'm Sarah. Nice to meet you." You reply, "Hi, Sarah. I'm Natasha. Nice to meet you too." She then asks, "What brings you to the event today?" You answer, "I'm looking to meet people in the tech industry. I work as a digital marketing strategist, and I'm hoping to learn more about new trends." She nods and says, "That sounds interesting. What kind of trends are you most excited about?" You think for a moment and respond, "I'm really interested in AI and how it's transforming digital marketing. I think it's going to change everything." She agrees and adds, "That's a great topic. I actually work in AI development, so I can definitely relate." You both continue discussing the future of AI, technology, and marketing. Before parting ways, Sarah says, "It was great talking to you, Natasha. Let's stay in touch." You respond, "Definitely. I'd love to connect on LinkedIn." In this conversation, here are some useful phrases for meeting new people. "Hi, I'm your name. Nice to meet you." "What brings you to this event? What do you do for a living? What are you most interested in at this event? Do you attend these events often? Let's stay in touch. I'd love to connect on LinkedIn." These phrases help you break the ice and keep the conversation going, especially in professional settings. Renting an apartment. Renting a place to live can be a stressful process, especially when you're unfamiliar with the market. Imagine you're looking for an apartment in New York City. You call a listing agent at RentHop and ask, "Hi, I'm calling about the apartment listed on your website. Is it still available?" The agent replies, "Yes, it's still available. Would you like to schedule a viewing?" You arrange a time to see the apartment, and when you arrive, the agent shows you around. You ask, "How much is the rent for this apartment?" The agent says, "The rent is $2,500 per month, but that includes utilities." You look around and ask, "Are there any extra fees I should know about?" The agent replies, "There's a 1-month security deposit, and we also require proof of income and a background check." You're curious about the neighborhood, so you ask, "Is it a quiet neighborhood?" The agent says, "Yes, it's very quiet, and there are parks nearby." After the tour, you thank the agent and say, "I'll think about it and get back to you." Later, you call the agent back and say, "I'd like to apply for the apartment we toured last week." You send the required documents and the process continues. Here are some helpful phrases when renting an apartment. Is this apartment still available? How much is the rent? Does the rent include utilities? Are there any extra fees? What's the security deposit? What documents do I need to apply? Is it a quiet neighborhood? These phrases help you navigate the process of renting and ensure that you ask the right questions. Lastly, let's talk about how to make a complaint when something goes wrong. Picture yourself staying at the Marriott Hotel in San Francisco, and you notice the air conditioning isn't working in your room. You call the front desk and say, "Hi, I'm staying in room 205 and the air conditioning isn't working. Can someone come to fix it?" The receptionist apologizes and says, "I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. Let me send someone right away." A technician arrives to fix the AC and you ask, "Is everything okay now?" The technician says, "Yes, it was just a clogged filter. It should be working fine now." Later, the hotel manager calls to follow up and asks, "How was everything during your stay?" You reply, "Thank you for checking in. The air conditioning is working fine now." The manager says, "We apologize again for the inconvenience, and we appreciate your understanding. Here are some useful phrases for making complaints. I have a problem with service. Can you help me with this? The issue isn't working properly. Can you send someone to fix it? Thank you for your help." Polite complaints help resolve issues quickly, and they give you a chance to practice your English in a practical setting. Let's start with a simple yet important skill: making small talk at work. Whether you're at a big company like Google or working in a small office, small talk is a great way to connect with colleagues. Let's say you're at your desk, and you see a coworker, Sarah, who is always friendly but has a lot of work to do. You smile and say, "Hey, Sarah, how's your day going so far?" Sarah looks up from her computer and replies, "Oh, it's been good, Natasha. I've been working on this big report, so it's a bit stressful, but I'll manage. How about you?" You respond, "It's been a busy day for me too. I'm finalizing a presentation for the team meeting later today." Sarah nods, saying, "I know how that feels. I've been in back-to-back meetings all morning. Hopefully it calms down after lunch." You both laugh, and then you ask, "Are you doing anything fun this weekend?" Sarah smiles and says, "Yes, I'm going hiking with some friends. We're going to the Redwood National Park in California. I'm really looking forward to it." You respond with excitement, "That sounds amazing. I love hiking. I hope you have a great time." She smiles, saying, "Thanks, you should join us next time." Small talk can be about work, hobbies, or weekend plans. These are great examples of how simple conversations can improve your speaking skills, build relationships at work, and make you feel comfortable in social situations. Useful phrases for small talk at work. How's your day going? What's on your plate today? What are you working on? Do you have any plans for the weekend? What do you like to do in your free time? These types of conversations make you sound more natural and confident when speaking English at work. Going shopping in a mall now. Let's look at another real-life situation that you will probably experience often. Shopping. Imagine you're at a mall and you need help finding a store. You walk into Macy's, a large department store, and a salesperson greets you. "Hi, welcome to Macy's. How can I help you today?" You smile and say, "Hi, I'm looking for the women's clothing section. Could you tell me where it is?" The salesperson points and replies, "Of course. You'll find the women's clothing section on the second floor to your right. Just take the escalator up." You thank them. "Thanks so much. I appreciate it." As you head to the escalator, you stop by a display and spot a special sale on winter jackets. You think, "I could use a new jacket for the cold weather coming up." Once you're in the women's section, you see a beautiful red jacket that you want to try on. You head to the fitting room, and a different salesperson asks, "Would you like to try that jacket on?" You respond, "Yes, please, I'll be in the fitting room." After trying it on, you come out and ask the salesperson, "How does it look? Do you think this color suits me?" They smile and say, "It looks great on you. That red is your color." Before you leave the store, you make sure to ask for a gift receipt for your purchase. The cashier gives it to you and says, Here's your receipt. You can return the jacket within 30 days if you change your mind. Let's move on to a more common situation. Ordering food at a restaurant. Imagine you're at the Olive Garden, a well-known restaurant chain, with a friend. After being seated, the waiter comes to your table and asks, "Hello, how are you?" "Two doing today?" you reply. "We're doing great, thanks. We're ready to order." The waiter hands you the menu and says, "Perfect. What can I get for you?" You look through the menu and say, "I'll have the lasagna, please. And could I get a side of garlic bread with that?" The waiter writes it down and asks, "Would you like to make that a combo with a soup or salad?" You respond, "Yes, I'll take the soup, please. The minestrone sounds good." Your friend orders, saying, "I'll have the chicken Alfredo with a side salad, and we'll both have iced tea, please." The waiter repeats the order. "So, that's one lasagna with garlic bread and a side of soup, and one chicken Alfredo with a side salad, both with iced tea. Is that correct?" You confirm, "Yes, that's right. Thank you." When the food arrives, the waiter says, "Here you go. Enjoy your meal." One of the most important moments in your career is the job interview. Whether it's your first interview or your 100th, it can feel both exciting and stressful at the same time. Let's say you're interviewing for a position at Apple, one of the most innovative companies in the world. You arrive at their office, and after checking in at the front desk, a recruiter named Jason comes to greet you. He says, "Hi, Natasha. It's nice to meet you. Thank you for coming in today. How was the traffic?" You reply, "Thanks, Jason. The traffic was a little heavy, but I made it here on time. I'm really excited about this interview." He smiles and leads you to the interview room. Once you're seated, he starts by asking, "Can you tell me a little about yourself and why you're interested in this role?" You take a deep breath and respond, "Sure. I've been working in marketing for about 5 years now. I've always admired Apple's commitment to innovation, and I believe my experience in digital marketing can contribute to the team's goals. I'm really excited about the opportunity to work with such a creative group of people." Jason nods and asks another question. "That's great. Can you give us an example of a time when you successfully handled a challenging project?" You think for a moment and then say, "Definitely. At my previous job at Samsung, we were tasked with launching a new product line with a very tight deadline. My team and I worked together to streamline the project, and I was able to negotiate better terms with the suppliers, which helped us meet the deadline. It was challenging, but I learned a lot about managing time and resources effectively." Jason takes a note and then says, "That sounds like a great experience. Now, what would you say are your strengths and weaknesses?" You smile knowing this question is coming, and you say, "One of my strengths is my attention to detail. I always make sure that everything is in place before moving forward with a project. However, I'm constantly working on being better at delegating tasks. Sometimes I tend to take on too much myself, but I'm learning to trust my team more with responsibilities." Jason smiles, making a note of your answer. He then asks, "What motivates you to do your best work?" You respond, "I'm motivated by the opportunity to make a real impact. Whether it's launching a successful campaign or improving processes, I find satisfaction in seeing tangible results from my work." After the interview is over, Jason shakes your hand and says, "Thank you for your time today, Natasha. We'll be in touch soon." You thank him and leave with a feeling of accomplishment. Useful phrases for job interviews. Can you tell me a little about yourself? Why are you interested in this position? What experience do you have that qualifies you for this role? What are your strengths and weaknesses? How do you handle challenges at work? What motivates you to do your best work? Why do you want to work for this company? Can you describe a time when you worked well under pressure? Do you have any questions for us? These phrases will help you sound more confident and prepared during a job interview. If you practice them beforehand, you'll feel more comfortable answering these common questions. Visiting a doctor's office now. Let's talk about another important situation that everyone needs to be able to handle: visiting the doctor. Imagine you're feeling a little under the weather, so you schedule an appointment with your family doctor, Dr. Emily, at Mount Sinai Health System. When you walk into the office, the receptionist greets you and asks, "Hi, Natasha. How can I help you today?" You reply, "Hi, I'm not feeling well. I've been having a sore throat and a headache for the past couple of days." The receptionist takes your information and says, "I'll let Dr. Emily know you're here. Please have a seat and she'll be with you shortly." You wait for a few minutes before Dr. Emily enters the room, greeting you with a friendly smile. She says, "Hi, Natasha. I see you've been having some symptoms. Can you tell me more about what you're experiencing?" You explain, "Yes, I've had a sore throat, a headache, and I've been feeling really tired. I also have a bit of a cough." Dr. Emily listens carefully and asks, "Have you had a fever or chills? Are you experiencing any difficulty breathing?" You answer, "No fever, but I've been feeling a bit chilled at night." Dr. Emily nods and says, "It sounds like you might have a viral infection. I'm going to check your throat and listen to your chest to be sure." After a quick checkup, Dr. Emily says, "It looks like you have a mild cold. Rest, drink plenty of fluids, and take some over-the-counter medicine for the headache and sore throat. If you don't feel better in a few days, please call us again." You thank her and say, "Thank you, Dr. Emily. I really appreciate your help." She smiles. "You're welcome. Feel better." Let's move on to another situation: making a reservation at a popular restaurant. Imagine you've decided to try Nobu, a famous sushi restaurant known for its delicious seafood. You call to make a reservation. You say, "Hi, I'd like to make a reservation for 2 people at 7 p.m. tonight." The person on the phone replies, "Sure, can I have your name, please?" You respond, "My name is Natasha." They confirm, "Great. We have a table available at 7 p.m. We'll see you then, Natasha. Thank you for choosing Nobu." Later that evening, you arrive at the restaurant and tell the hostess, "Hi, I have a reservation under Natasha for 7 p.m. The hostess checks the list and says, "Yes, we have a table ready for you. Right this way, please." Once seated, the waiter brings the menu and asks, "What can I get you to drink?" You smile and say, "I'll have the green tea, please." Your friend says, "I'll have sparkling water." As you look through the menu, you both decide on what to order. You say, "I'll have the sushi platter, and my friend will have the black cod." The waiter nods and repeats the order. "Great choices. Your food will be out shortly." Once you finish your meal, the waiter comes back with the bill and says, "Would you like to pay by card or cash?" You respond, "I'll pay by card, thank you." Imagine you're out with your friends at a local park. You're enjoying a sunny afternoon, but suddenly, someone in your group falls and hurts their ankle. This is a stressful situation, but knowing how to communicate clearly can make a huge difference in managing it effectively. You quickly kneel beside your friend John and ask, "Are you okay, John? What happened?" He's holding his ankle, and you can tell he's in pain. He says, "I tripped over that tree root. My ankle really hurts. I think I might have twisted it." You take a deep breath and say, "Don't worry, John. I'll call an ambulance to get help. Just stay still." You take out your phone and dial the emergency services number. "Hello, this is Natasha. I'm at Central Park. A friend of mine has injured his ankle. He's in a lot of pain, and I think it's a sprain. Can you send help right away?" The operator on the other end calmly responds, "Okay, Natasha. We've got your location. Help is on the way. Please try to keep your friend still and avoid moving the injured leg." As you wait for the ambulance, you talk to John to help keep him calm, saying, "The ambulance is on its way. Just stay relaxed, okay? I know it's painful, but they'll be here soon to help." After a few minutes, the ambulance arrives. The paramedics, Sophie and David, quickly assess the situation. Sophie says, "Hi, Natasha. Don't worry. We're here to help. John, we're going to take care of your ankle now." They gently lift John onto the stretcher and start the process of stabilizing his ankle. David reassures you, saying, "We'll take him to the hospital for further checks." "He'll be fine, Natasha. Good job staying calm and calling for help right away." John is taken to the hospital, and later you receive a message from him. "Hey, Natasha, it was just a sprain. Thanks so much for everything." Useful phrases for handling emergencies. "Are you okay?" "What happened?" "Don't worry, help is on the way. I'll call an ambulance." "Stay still, don't move your leg arm. I've called emergency services, help is coming." "Can you tell me where it hurts the most?" "Keep calm. Everything will be okay." "Do you feel any dizziness or nausea?" "We need medical assistance right away." "Can you breathe okay?" "Is anything hurting?" These phrases are essential when managing emergencies. They can help calm someone down, communicate clearly with emergency services, and ensure the person in need of help gets the appropriate care. Now, let's say you're at a friend's birthday party and you don't know many people there. You've just arrived and you're a little nervous about striking up a conversation, but don't worry. Small talk can be a great way to start conversations and get to know people better. As you walk into the living room, you notice a couple of guests standing by the food table. You approach a friendly-looking person named Sarah and say, "Hi, I'm Natasha. It's so nice to meet you. How do you know the birthday person?" Sarah smiles and replies, "Hi, Natasha. I've known Laura since college. We met in a history class, and we've been friends ever since. How about you? How do you know Laura?" You respond with a smile. "I've known Laura through work. We're both in marketing, so we've worked together on a few projects. It's great to finally meet some of her other friends." Sarah then asks, "So, what do you do for work? Are you in marketing as well?" You reply, "Yes, I work in digital marketing, mostly handling social media campaigns. It's a really fast-paced job, but I love the creativity behind it. What about you? What do you do?" Sarah says, "I'm a graphic designer. I love working with colors and creating visual content. We actually work on some similar projects in terms of creating digital content, but from different angles." You both laugh and continue chatting about your work and interests. After a few minutes, you notice other guests joining the conversation. The conversation flows naturally, and soon you feel completely comfortable in the social setting. Let's now consider another everyday situation: shopping for groceries. You've made your shopping list, grabbed your reusable bags, and entered Whole Foods Market to buy your weekly essentials. You walk down the aisles, and after a while, you realize you're looking for a specific item: almond milk. You approach a store employee named James and ask, "Excuse me, do you know where I can find almond milk?" James smiles and says, "Of course. It's in aisle 6, right next to the dairy section. You'll find several brands there." You thank him and head to aisle 6. As you browse the options, you notice that some almond milk brands are organic and some are not. You think about it for a second and then decide to choose the organic almond milk. After you finish shopping, you head to the checkout. The cashier, Amanda, scans your items and asks, "Would you like to pay with cash or card today?" You respond, "I'll pay with card, please." Amanda swipes your card and says, "Your total is $38.75. Do you need any bags?" You say, "No, I've got my own reusable bags. Thank you." Once the payment is processed, Amanda smiles and says, "Thank you for shopping with us today. Have a great day." You reply, "Thanks, you too." You grab your bags and head out of the store, feeling accomplished and ready for the week ahead. Finally, let's explore planning a vacation. You've been dreaming of visiting Paris, the city of love, for a long time. You've saved up for the trip and are now ready to start planning. You sit down with your laptop and start researching flights. You find a good deal on a flight with Air France leaving in 2 months. You book the flight and then begin searching for hotels in the heart of the city. After some searching, you decide on a cozy boutique hotel near Eiffel Tower called Hotel Parisian Charm. You call the hotel to confirm the booking. The receptionist, Lucy, answers the phone and says, "Hello, Hotel Parisian Charm. How can I assist you?" You say, "Hi, I've just made a reservation for 2 people from Air France flights. I wanted to confirm my booking and check on any special requirements for my stay." Lucy checks and responds, "I see your reservation here, Natasha. You're all set for a stay in one of our city view rooms. We also have a shuttle service available to pick you up from the airport if you need it." You thank her and ask, "That sounds great. Can I add a breakfast package to my reservation?" Lucy confirms, "Of course, I'll add breakfast for 2 each morning of your stay. Your total will be updated with the breakfast charge. Is there anything else I can help you with?" You reply, "No, that's all. Thank you for your help." Lucy replies, "You're welcome, Natasha. We look forward to welcoming you to Paris."